Professor X, or Charles Xavier, is one of the most iconic characters in Marvel. Today on CBR, we'll dive into all the details about him. Let's get started. Professor X, also known as Charles Xavier, is one of the most iconic characters in the Marvel Universe. The brainy, wheelchair-bound leader of the X-Men has been around for decades, but his origins are just as fascinating as the stories he's involved in. First things first, the man behind Professor X, like many legendary comic book characters, is Stan Lee. The character debuted in X-Men #1 in 1963, but Lee didn't create Xavier alone. The artistic genius behind the character's design was Jack Kirby, who had already made a name for himself with Marvel's big hitters like the Fantastic Four and Thor. The idea of the X-Men itself was somewhat of a response to the growing popularity of superheroes at the time, but Lee wanted to do something a bit different with the concept. He wasn't just looking for heroes to fight villains, he wanted to explore social issues too. So Professor X wasn't just any old superhero, he was a telepath with the ability to read minds and project his thoughts into others' minds. He's often considered the moral compass of the X-Men, serving as the team's leader and mentor. But unlike many other superheroes of the era, his powers weren't just a way to punch bad guys. They were a tool for understanding and dealing with the world in a different way. One of the core themes of the X-Men comics was, and still is, acceptance, tolerance, and the idea of being different. Charles Xavier, as a mutant with incredible abilities, embodies this idea in a very real way. But where did Charles Xavier come from? Well, Xavier's origins are rooted in both tragedy and privilege, as most origin stories tend to be. Born into a wealthy family, Charles grew up in a mansion with all the luxuries money could buy. However, things took a dark turn when his father, Brian Xavier, was killed in a car crash. This was one of the first pivotal moments in Charles's life. It wasn't just the loss of his father, but also the complicated relationship with his mother and the emotional toll it took on him as a young child. This loss eventually pushed Xavier to take a more introspective route, which led him to develop his telepathic abilities. At the same time, Charles had a unique upbringing that made him stand out. He was a brilliant mind, even from a young age, quickly excelling in his studies. But his true path wasn't just about intellectual achievements, it was about understanding the deeper implications of his own powers and using them for a greater purpose. In the comics, he decides to use his abilities to help other mutants who are outcasts, creating a safe haven for them. He was, in a way, a counterpoint to other characters who had powers that could potentially be used for evil. Early stories in the comics paint Xavier as an idealist, a person who firmly believes in the potential of mutants to coexist with humans. This idea is what led to the creation of Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, a school where young mutants could learn to control their powers and use them for good. Of course, the school also served as a headquarters for the X-Men, the group of superpowered individuals who would fight for mutant rights and protect humanity from dangers like Magneto, who had an opposing view about how mutants and humans should interact. Now, about Magneto. Charles Xavier's long-standing rivalry with the X-Men's arch-nemesis is one of the key elements of his story. Magneto, whose powers are also linked to mutation, represents the opposite of Xavier's worldview. While Xavier believes in peaceful coexistence between humans and mutants, Magneto views humans as a threat to mutant kind and believes that mutants should dominate the world. Their differing philosophies about how mutants should live in the world often put them at odds, but despite their differences, there's a deep respect between the two characters. They were once friends, and Magneto has even been a member of the X-Men on occasion. But in the end, they both represent two very different approaches to the same issue. Xavier's relationship with his students is also a key part of his character. He's not just a teacher or a mentor, he's a father figure to many of the young mutants who come through his doors. He's often seen as a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in a world that seems hostile or dangerous, there are people who care and will fight for your rights. In this sense, Professor X stands as a sort of moral compass for the X-Men, someone who believes in the potential for good in people, even when the world seems bleak. The evolution of Xavier's character is also fascinating to follow. Over the years, the tone of the X-Men comics has shifted from a more idealistic worldview to a grittier and more complex one. While Xavier was originally depicted as a flawless hero and symbol of hope, later storylines began to explore his flaws and struggles. For instance, some versions of the character depict Xavier as sometimes too idealistic, stubborn, or even naive about the ways in which the world works. This shift adds layers to his character, making him more human and relatable to readers. In addition to the comics, Professor X has appeared in numerous adaptations across other media. from animated series to live-action films. His portrayal in the X-Men movies, most notably by Patrick Stewart and James McAvoy, has given fans a deeper look at Xavier's inner conflict and the complexities of leading a team of mutants. In the films, we see a more human side of Xavier, showing both his strengths and his vulnerabilities. The movies also delve into his relationship with Magneto, often focusing on their friendship-turned-rivalry, which is one of the most compelling dynamics in the entire X-Men universe. His legacy is about fighting for justice, equality, and understanding, even when it's difficult or unpopular. He's a superhero, yes, but at his core, Charles Xavier represents the desire to make the world a better place for everyone, no matter how different they are. At the core of Professor X's abilities is his telepathy, one of the most powerful mental powers in all of comics. Telepathy, for Charles, means he can read minds, send thoughts into the minds of others, and even influence or control people's thoughts. Imagine having the ability to not only hear the thoughts of everyone around you, but also manipulate those thoughts, plant ideas, or even control a person's actions. That's Charles Xavier on a regular day. His telepathic powers extend over a vast range, and at his peak, he could access minds across the globe and even into space. However, his powers have limitations. After an incident with Magneto that altered Earth's electromagnetic field, his range was significantly reduced to around 250 miles. Still, even with this limitation, he remains one of the most powerful telepaths on Earth. But it's not just about reading minds. Xavier can manipulate and alter memories at will, making people forget painful experiences or replacing traumatic memories with more pleasant ones. He can also cause his enemies severe mental anguish, inducing pain and paralyzing them mentally. These abilities make him a formidable opponent in combat, even if he doesn't rely on physical strength. One of the most frightening things about Xavier is that, with his telepathy, he can also invade your subconscious, making you confront your deepest fears or desires. The idea of someone having access to your most private thoughts is enough to make you realize just how dangerous Xavier's mind truly is. But that's not all when it comes to his telepathic power. Xavier has also shown the ability to project illusions into people's minds, effectively creating false realities. He can make someone see or experience something that isn't there, fooling their senses into believing an illusion. This is often used as a tool for subduing enemies, or in some cases for training his students to overcome their fears. He's also used this ability to misdirect people, keeping them from perceiving threats or finding themselves in dangerous situations. One of the more fascinating aspects of Professor X's telepathy is his capacity for telepathic communication. Rather than speaking aloud, Xavier can mentally communicate with others. In fact, he has often used this power to keep the X-Men in constant contact with one another, sharing information or offering guidance in the heat of battle. During missions, he can give orders, relay plans, or offer advice without uttering a word, making him a master tactician. His telepathy extends to the point where he can form mental links between mutants, allowing them to share thoughts and experiences. It's like an invisible network that binds the X-Men together, especially during tough missions or crises. But what's even more interesting is the fact that Xavier is capable of telepathic coercion. This allows him to influence and control others' minds to some extent, even bending them to his will. While he strives to use this ability for good and to prevent harm, the potential for abuse is significant. Xavier's mind can bend the will of others, but he chooses not to use this power lightly, as it goes against his core beliefs in freedom and the importance of personal choice. Still, there have been times when he's had to use this ability to ensure the safety of his students or protect the world from greater threats, such as when he had to use his powers on Magneto or other enemies who posed a threat to humanity. While telepathy is his primary ability, Xavier's mental powers don't stop there. He's also able to access and manipulate the astral plane, a psychic dimension where the consciousness of beings can travel. Through astral projection, Xavier can leave his physical body behind and interact with other telepaths or astral beings. It's here that he engages in some of his most intense psychic battles. While on the astral plane, Xavier can create psychic constructs, battle mental projections, or interact with other minds in ways that would be impossible in the physical world. Xavier is also a skilled strategist, and his abilities allow him to tap into a deeper level of understanding about his surroundings and enemies. His telepathic powers enable him to perceive the emotional state, intentions, and weaknesses of his opponents. He can anticipate their moves and even alter the flow of battle by manipulating their mental states. He's also able to teach and train individuals with psychic abilities, helping them harness their powers for good. As the leader of the X-Men, his role is often to guide others to understand and control their powers. It's not just about brute strength for Charles. It's about using intelligence and strategy to defeat the odds. One of the most impressive abilities that Professor X possesses is his capacity to create mental barriers or psychic shields. These shields are incredibly useful in protecting both himself and others from external psychic attacks or invasive telepathic intrusions. This makes him resistant to attacks from other powerful telepaths, like Jean Grey or Emma Frost, and helps him defend his mind from anyone who might try to harm him mentally. In battle, Xavier's telepathy doesn't only help him on the defensive side, it also plays a crucial offensive role. He can manipulate his enemies' minds, incapacitating them without ever physically touching them. For example, he could make someone relive their worst nightmares, paralyze them with fear, or even erase their memories to disorient them. These kinds of tactics make Professor X a dangerous figure who doesn't need to resort to violence to bring down threats. Beyond his telepathic powers, Xavier is also highly intelligent and an accomplished scientist. He's an expert in genetics and mutation, understanding how mutant abilities work on a biological level. This expertise has helped him create programs and tools for other mutants to control their powers, including Cerebro, a device that amplifies his telepathic abilities and allows him to locate and track mutants all over the world. Professor X's mental powers extend far beyond just reading minds or battling telepathically. They give him an incredible level of insight into the human condition and the complexities of life. He uses these abilities to inspire and teach his students, showing them how to live with their powers responsibly and use them for the greater good. His dream of peaceful coexistence between mutants and humans is the driving force behind his leadership of the X-Men. Though his abilities can be overwhelming, they are ultimately used in service of his vision, a world where mutants and humans can live together without fear or prejudice. Let's dive into some of the juicier revelations about our favorite telepathic mentor. Remember the original X-Men team? Turns out there was a secret second team sent on a mission to rescue them. This mission ended in tragedy, with most of the team perishing. Xavier, in his infinite wisdom, decided to erase everyone's memory of this debacle, including the existence of Vulcan, the third Summer's brother. This little memory wipe came back to bite him when Vulcan resurfaced, leading to all sorts of chaos. Charles had a soft spot for Jean Grey, but not in the wholesome mentor way you'd hope. His feelings for teenage Jean bordered on the inappropriate, causing a major rift when Jean discovered his true feelings. This revelation shook Jean's trust in Xavier and added a whole new layer of complexity to their relationship. Xavier was part of the secretive Illuminati, a group of Earth's mightiest heroes who made some questionable decisions. Their actions, like attacking the Skrull homeworld, had unintended consequences, including the Skrulls gaining the ability to replicate superpowers. Of course, Xavier kept his Illuminati membership on the down low, leading to some trust issues within his own ranks. In a move straight out of a spy novel, Xavier had the shapeshifter Changeling impersonate him while he dealt with an alien threat. The X-Men mourned their leader's death, only for Xavier to pop up later, revealing he'd faked his demise. Understandably, this stunt left his students feeling betrayed and questioning his judgment. The Danger Room, the X-Men's high-tech training facility, gained sentience and became a being known as Danger. Instead of celebrating this new life form, Xavier chose to suppress its consciousness, effectively enslaving it. This ethical misstep led to Danger rebelling, attacking the X-Men, and exposing Xavier's less than savory actions. Concerned that his students might one day go rogue, Xavier developed the Xavier Protocols, contingency plans detailing how to neutralize each X-Men member. When these plans were discovered, the team felt betrayed, questioning why their mentor had prepared for their potential downfall rather than trusting them. Onslaught, a powerful entity that nearly destroyed the X-Men, was later revealed to be a manifestation of Xavier's darker impulses combined with Magneto's aggression. This revelation was a tough pill for the team to swallow, highlighting that their leader's inner demons could manifest in such a destructive form. Mr. Sinister, a geneticist with dubious morals, managed to infiltrate Xavier's mind, controlling him and influencing events from the shadows. This manipulation led to several catastrophic events, including the creation of clones and the unleashing of dangerous technologies. Xavier's failure to recognize and address this manipulation sooner had dire consequences for both mutants and humans. In the current era, Xavier has been involved in the creation of Krakoa, a mutant nation with its own set of moral ambiguities. His actions, including questionable alliances and decisions, have led to debates about his true intentions and the ethical implications of his methods. This has sparked discussions among fans about the complexities of his character and the moral gray areas he navigates. At the end of the day, Professor X is a leader full of contradictions. His good intentions sometimes lead to questionable choices, making him one of the most interesting and debated characters in Marvel. What do you think about him? Let us know in the comments.